I'm Samantha Mitchell, 32 years old, and I'll never forget the moment my entire family turned on me at that elegant beachfront restaurant. You've ruined our vacation with your attitude. My sister Jessica spat, champagne glass trembling in her manicured hand. My parents nodded in agreement, while my brother-in-law and aunt stared daggers at me. I sat there, alone against them all, as years of resentment poured out. They didn't know I had secretly recorded every conversation that proved they had been plotting against me for months. The devastating truth I discovered would change our family forever. Before I dive into this story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you've ever dealt with family betrayal, hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of survivors. Trust me, you'll want to hear how I turned the tables on the people who were supposed to love me most. Growing up in the Mitchell family meant living in the shadow of perfection, my sister Jessica's perfection, to be exact. From the moment she was born 3 years before me, Jessica became the golden child, the daughter who could do no wrong. While she was winning beauty pageants, I was struggling with braces and acne. When she became homecoming queen, I was celebrating making the debate team. Different paths, different values, yet only one seemed to earn our parents' approval. Samantha, why can't you put more effort into your appearance like your sister? My mother would sigh, eyeing my practical clothing choices with thinly veiled disappointment. Jessica knows how to present herself. What I lacked in conventional charm, I made up for with intelligence and determination. After graduating with honors in finance, I built a career as a financial analyst while Jessica married Bradley, the son of one of our father's business associates, and settled into life as a socialite. My investments prospered. I created stability and success on my own terms. The annual Mitchell family vacation had been a tradition since we were children. Every summer, we'd spend 2 weeks at an exclusive resort in Malibu. It was supposed to be a time of bonding and relaxation, though it usually devolved into a showcase for Jessica's latest achievements and my apparent shortcomings. This year was different. 3 months before our scheduled trip, my father called a family meeting to discuss the future of the Mitchell Family Trust. At 65, he was considering retirement and needed to address inheritance and company succession. "We need to ensure the family legacy continues," he announced, looking pointedly between Jessica and me. "There are decisions to be made about who will steward what portions of our holdings." I noticed the smug look Jessica exchanged with Bradley. Something felt off, but I couldn't place it. In the weeks following that meeting, I began noticing strange shifts in family dynamics. Phone calls would abruptly end when I walked into a room. Conversations between Jessica and my parents would cease when I approached. Twice, I came upon my mother and aunt whispering intently, only to have them plaster unconvincing smiles on their faces when they noticed me. The breaking point came when I was using my father's laptop to help him with some accounting software. A notification popped up an email from Jessica with the subject line, Sam problem, family meeting. I couldn't see the content, just that fragment, but it was enough to confirm my suspicions. My family was discussing me behind my back, and whatever they were planning, they considered me a problem. That night, I ordered several small recording devices online. If my family was conspiring against me, I needed evidence. I knew it seemed paranoid, but years of being gaslit and dismissed had taught me to trust my instincts. The day we arrived at the Ocean View Resort, I strategically placed the first recorder in my beach bag. The others would be deployed throughout the week in locations where family discussions might occur. I felt a twinge of guilt about the invasion of privacy, but reminded myself, they had already violated my trust. "Welcome back to paradise, Mitchells." The resort manager Catherine greeted us in the marble-floored lobby, champagne flutes already being distributed by attentive staff. "Your usual accommodations are ready." My father shook hands warmly. "Excellent as always, Catherine. We're looking forward to a peaceful family retreat." I caught Jessica's eye across the lobby as she hooked her arm through Bradley's. The smile she gave me didn't reach her eyes. Something cold and calculated lurked behind her perfect facade. "To family." My mother toasted once we were settled on the terrace of my father's suite, the Pacific Ocean stretching endlessly before us. To family, we all echoed, the word hollow on my lips as I activated the first recorder hidden in my purse. Little did I know just how much family secrets those devices would capture over the next 6 days. The first night at the resort, I couldn't sleep. The crashing waves outside my balcony matched the tumult of my thoughts. Around midnight, I decided to take a walk along the private beach. As I passed Jessica and Bradley's suite, I heard their voices drifting through the partially open balcony doors. I froze, then quietly moved closer to the sound. "Dad's meeting with the lawyers next month to finalize the trust revisions," Jessica was saying. "We need to make sure Sam doesn't get control of any of the major holdings. Has he actually considered giving her equal share?" Bradley sounded alarmed. He mentioned her investment success gives him confidence in her business acumen. Jessica mimicked our father's deep voice. "We need to nip that in the bud." My heart raced as I pressed record on my phone as backup to the device already in place. "She just gets lucky with those investments," Bradley scoffed. "She doesn't understand what it takes to run the Mitchell empire like we do." Jessica laughed. "Sam's always been book smart, but lacks real-world savvy. Remember that nonprofit she wasted $50,000 on? The one that went bankrupt?" My face burned with anger. That nonprofit was a microfinance organization that had hit temporary troubles but ultimately succeeded in helping hundreds of women start businesses. It actually doubled my investment return the following year, something I'd proudly told my family at the time. "I think we should suggest to your parents that they limit Sam to a cash distribution," Bradley continued. "Tell them her business investments are too risky. We can show them those articles about tech startups failing." "Perfect," Jessica purred. "They trust our judgment more anyway. And once the company is under our control, we can finally implement those changes we've been discussing. Starting with cutting that ridiculous research division she keeps defending," Bradley added. "Prime real estate we could convert to luxury developments." I stood frozen, the recording continuing as they outlined their plans to manipulate our parents and seize control of the family business. The research division they so casually planned to eliminate employed over 100 people, many of whom had worked for my father for decades. Their conversation shifted to more mundane matters, and I slipped away, trembling with a mixture of hurt and rage. In my room, I played back the recording, hardly able to believe the naked ambition and callousness in their voices. This betrayal triggered memories of childhood incidents I'd nearly forgotten. When I was 12, Jessica had been caught breaking our mother's favorite vase, an heirloom from our grandmother. Shed tearfully blamed me, claiming she'd seen me playing ball in the house. I'd been grounded for a month, my protests falling on deaf ears. Later, I'd overheard Jessica bragging to her friend about getting away with it. "Sam's so easy to blame," Shed giggled. "Mom and Dad always believed me over her." 20 years later, nothing had changed. Jessica was still manipulating, still lying, still seeing me as an obstacle to remove rather than a sister to cherish. I lay awake all night, debating my next move. Direct confrontation would alert them to my knowledge and potentially cause them to be more careful. No, I needed more evidence. A complete picture of the conspiracy. I needed to understand how deep this betrayal went and who was involved. Breakfast the next morning was an exercise in restraint. I watched Jessica buttering her toast, chatting amiably with our mother about spa appointments, as if she hadn't been plotting my financial ruin hours earlier. "Sleep well, Samantha?" my father asked, glancing up from his newspaper. "Like a baby," I lied, sipping my coffee. "Looking forward to today's activities. We were thinking of taking the yacht out," Jessica announced. "Perfect day for it." Our Aunt Vivian, my mother's sister, joined us at the table. Of all my family members, Vivian had always seemed most in my corner. As a successful accountant who'd never married, she'd been something of a role model for me. "Sam, you look tired," she observed, her brow furrowing with what appeared to be genuine concern. "Everything okay?" "Just excited to be here," I deflected. "Yacht day sounds perfect." Jessica frowned slightly. "Actually, we were thinking of a more adventurous route. You get seasick so easily, Sam. Maybe you'd prefer to stay back." And there it was, the first public move to marginalize me. A childhood incident where I'd gotten motion sickness once during rough waters was now being weaponized to exclude me. "I'll bring drama mean," I said sweetly. "Wouldn't miss family time for the world." Jessica's smile tightened. "Whatever you want. Just don't ruin everyone's day if you start feeling ill." The battle lines were drawn, subtle but unmistakable. I caught Bradley watching me with narrowed eyes, perhaps wondering if I'd overheard them the night before. I met his gaze evenly, revealing nothing. Whatever game my family was playing, I was now a conscious participant, and unlike them, I was playing for truth, not power. The Mitchell family yacht, Fortune's Favor, cut through the azure waters with elegant precision. I stood at the bow, wind whipping my hair as I pretended to enjoy the excursion. In reality, I was hyper-aware of every interaction, every whispered conversation. "Perfect day," my father declared, handing the wheel to the captain so he could join us on deck. "Let's anchor at Dolphin Cove for some swimming." 2 hours into our excursion, Jessica suggested snorkeling at a nearby reef. "The water's so clear today, we'll see everything," she enthused. I went to grab my gear from below deck, and when I returned, I found an empty boat save for the captain. "They've already headed out, Miss Mitchell," he informed me, pointing to distant figures in the water. "Your brother-in-law said you weren't feeling well and would stay aboard." I hadn't said anything of the sort. They had simply left without me, creating a convenient narrative of my absence. From my vantage point, I could see them 5 bobbing heads close together in conversation, occasionally glancing back at the boat. "How long have they been gone?" I asked, working to keep my voice casual. "About 10 minutes. They said they'd be about 45 minutes total." "Perfect." I hurried to my father's private cabin where he often retreated to handle business calls during vacation. I needed to understand what they were discussing out there beyond my hearing. In his cabin, I found his briefcase unlocked, unusual for my security-conscious father. Inside was a recorder of my own design, perfectly positioned to capture any conversation. I quickly switched out the memory card with a blank one, pocketing the original. I'd review it later in private. That evening, after dinner, I retreated to my room to listen. My hands trembled as I inserted the card into my laptop. "Richard, we need to discuss Samantha's position in the company." My mother's voice came through clearly. They must have been in the cabin before the snorkeling excursion. "Elizabeth, we've been over this." My father sounded tired. "She's my daughter too." "Of course she is. But Jessica and Bradley have been working directly with you for years. Samantha chose her own path, a path that's made her quite successful," my father pointed out. "Her investment portfolio has outperformed our company stocks 3 years running." "Lucky breaks," my mother dismissed. "Jessica manages relationships, attends the charity functions, maintains our family's social position. What has Samantha done for the Mitchell name?" There was a long pause before my father spoke again. "I'm considering removing her completely from operational inheritance," he finally said. "A cash settlement might be cleaner." My stomach dropped. Despite his initial defense, my father was actually considering cutting me out. "Jessica thinks that's wisest," my mother agreed. "She's concerned about Samantha's unconventional ideas disrupting what we've built." "I'll speak with the lawyers next week," my father concluded. "Better to handle this now than have conflict later." I sat in stunned silence as the recording ended. My own parents, plotting to exclude me from my birthright because I didn't fit their mold of what a Mitchell should be. The next morning, I was collecting my towel at the beach cabana when I noticed someone watching me. "Rough day yesterday?" the attendant asked, handing me a bottle of water. His name tag read Ryan. "What do you mean?" I asked cautiously. "I saw you sitting alone on the yacht while your family was snorkeling. Seemed kind of deliberate, the way they all left together." I studied him. Early 30s. Observant green eyes, a directness that was refreshing after days of veiled family machinations. "You're very perceptive," I admitted. "Occupational hazard," he shrugged. "You see a lot working at these resorts. Family dynamics aren't always what they seem on the surface." "You have no idea," I muttered. "Try me," he offered, then added quickly, Not to overstep, just. Sometimes it helps to talk to someone completely outside the situation. Something about his genuine concern broke through my reserve. We arranged to meet after his shift ended, and over coffee at a small cafe away from the resort, I found myself sharing parts of my situation, careful to maintain confidentiality about the specifics. So they're essentially trying to edge you out of what's rightfully yours. Ryan summarized after Id explained the basics. Exactly. But I don't understand why now. The company's been successful for decades with the current structure. Ryan looked thoughtful. Usually when people make sudden power moves like this, there's something else going on. Money trouble maybe, or a big opportunity they don't want to share. His words triggered a memory. During my quick search of my father's briefcase, Id noticed financial documents I hadn't had time to examine properly. I needed another look. That night, during a business dinner where my father was entertaining associates, I slipped into his suite again. This time, I photographed every document in his briefcase. Back in my room, I pored over the images, financial statements, projections, loan applications, and then I saw it. Mitchell Industries had been quietly losing money for the past 2 years. The division Jessica and Bradley oversaw, luxury real estate development, had made several disastrous investments. They'd hidden the losses by shifting funds from more profitable divisions, creating a precarious financial house of cards. They didn't want to exclude me because I was incompetent. They wanted me out because they needed a scapegoat for their failures, and access to my successful investments to bail them out. I sat back, a cold clarity washing over me. This wasn't just about sibling rivalry or parental favoritism. This was fraud, potentially criminal mismanagement, and I was being set up to take the fall. I needed to be very careful about my next steps. One wrong move and I could lose everything, not just my inheritance, but my reputation and possibly even my freedom. As I contemplated my options, a text came through from Ryan. Found something interesting about your family's business situation. Meet tomorrow. I stared at the screen, wondering if Id finally found an ally in this battle, or if this too would prove to be another betrayal. Id always seen Aunt Vivian as different from the rest of my family. Unmarried by choice, she'd built her accounting career on merit rather than family connections. Growing up, she'd been the one to notice my academic achievements when my parents were busy applauding Jessica's social triumphs. The practical Mitchell, she'd call me with a wink. The one hole still be standing when the glamour fades. After discovering the true state of the family business, I decided to confide in her partially. I wouldn't reveal my recordings or the full extent of my knowledge, but I needed to test where her loyalties truly lay. We met for breakfast at a small cafe half a mile from the resort, away from prying family eyes. Something's not right with this vacation. I began after Wed ordered. Everyone's behaving strangely, having private conversations that stop when I approach. Vivian's eyes softened with apparent concern. I've noticed tension too. What do you think is happening? I hesitated, watching her carefully. Dad mentioned revising the family trust. I think Jessica and Bradley are trying to influence his decisions against me. Oh, Samantha. Vivian reached across to squeeze my hand. You've always been suspicious of Jessica's intentions. Sibling rivalry is normal, but this sounds paranoid. It's not paranoia if they're really plotting against you, I countered. I overheard conversations. They want me out of the company completely. Vivian sighed. Your sister can be calculating, I'll grant you that. But your parents wouldn't cut you out entirely. You're still their daughter. Would you talk to them? I asked. You're the only one they might listen to objectively. Of course, she promised. I'll see what I can learn and advocate for you. Well, figure this out together. I thanked her, feeling a glimmer of hope for the first time in days. Maybe I wasn't entirely alone in this battle. That hope was shattered 3 hours later. Id placed a recorder in my beach bag, which I accidentally left in Vivian's suite when I stopped by to borrow sunscreen. When I retrieved it that afternoon, I discovered she'd made a phone call immediately after our breakfast. Jessica, we have a situation. Vivian's voice came through the speaker. I just had breakfast with Samantha. She suspects something's happening with the trust revisions. How much does she know? Jessica demanded. Not everything, but she knows you and Bradley are trying to influence Richard against her. She asked me to intercede on her behalf. What did you say? That it'd help, of course. I gained her trust. But we need to accelerate the timeline. If she starts digging, she might discover the Westlake losses. Did you mention the board meeting next month? Jessica asked. No, I kept to generalities. She doesn't suspect my involvement at all. Good. Jessica sounded relieved. Keep her close. Find out what else she knows. Dad respects your financial opinion. If you tell him she's not trustworthy with company control, he'll believe you. I've already laid that groundwork, Vivian assured her. I mentioned her impulsive investment in that tech startup last year. Perfect. Bradley's prepared the paperwork showing the projected losses for Dad. Between that and your concerns, we should be able to convince him before the vacation ends. And my consideration? Vivian asked, her tone shifting to something harder, more businesslike. The Malibu property transfers to you once everything's finalized, as agreed. I stopped the recording, feeling physically ill. Aunt Vivian, my confidant, my ally, was not only betraying me but actively participating in the conspiracy for personal gain. The Malibu property was a beachfront house worth at least $4 million. This betrayal cut deeper than the others. I remembered countless occasions when Vivian had seemingly protected me from Jessica's manipulations or my parents' neglect. The time shed defended my decision to study finance instead of joining the family business immediately. The graduation gift of professional investment software when my parents had given me a generic piece of jewelry. The late-night calls during my first job when I doubted myself. Had it all been calculated? Building my trust for eventual exploitation? Or had she simply been offered a price she couldn't refuse for her loyalty? Either way, I was truly alone in my fight against my family. The realization crushed me. And for the first time since discovering their plot, I broke down. In the privacy of my resort bathroom, I sobbed until no more tears would come, grief giving way to a hollow emptiness. A text alert interrupted my despair. Ryan, meet me at the staff dock. 8 p.m. Found documents you should see. I washed my face, erasing the evidence of my breakdown. I couldn't afford weakness now. As the sun set over the Pacific, I made my way discreetly to the staff area of the resort. Ryan was waiting on a small wooden dock, away from the main resort facilities. He held a folder and looked nervous. I shouldn't be showing you this, he said without preamble. But after what you told me, I thought you should know. What is it? I asked, taking the folder. Financial disclosures your brother-in-law made to the resort for your family's line of credit here. I work in accounting during the off-season, he explained. The numbers don't match what's publicly reported for Mitchell Industries. I opened the folder, scanning the documents inside. Bradley had submitted financial statements showing the company in excellent condition to secure premium services on credit. But I knew from my father's documents that these figures were wildly inflated. This is fraud, I whispered. Ryan nodded grimly. Pretty textbook. If the resort management knew the company's actual financial position, they'd require payment up front for everything. Why are you helping me? I asked, suddenly suspicious after Vivian's betrayal. Honestly, Ryan ran a hand through his hair. I studied finance too, worked at Goldman for 3 years before burning out. I recognized the discrepancies immediately and was going to report it, but then I met you and realized you were caught in the middle. I studied him, searching for signs of deception but finding only genuine concern. I need to understand exactly what they're planning, I said finally. Not just for me, but for everyone involved with Mitchell Industries. There are hundreds of employees whose livelihoods depend on the company's stability. I can help analyze the numbers, Ryan offered. If you can get me more documents. For the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of hope. Ryan might be a stranger, but his expertise and outsider perspective were exactly what I needed. Thank you, I said simply. Don't thank me yet, he replied. From what I've seen, your family's company is in serious trouble, and it looks like they're planning to use you to fix it whether you know it or not. As we parted ways, I felt resolve hardening within me. My family hadn't just betrayed me emotionally. They were involved in potential financial crimes. Whatever their endgame was, I needed to protect myself and possibly the entire Mitchell legacy. On the third day of our vacation, my father broke tradition by scheduling a business meeting at the resort. Typically, these trips were strictly family time, with business discussions explicitly forbidden by my mother. This deviation from protocol only confirmed my suspicions that something significant was happening. I observed my father leaving his suite at precisely 10 a.m., dressed in what I recognized as his casual business attire, khakis, and a button-down rather than his usual vacation polo. I waited 5 minutes, then followed at a distance to the resort's business center. Through the glass walls, I could see him meeting with 3 men in suits, none of whom I recognized. I positioned myself in the adjacent coffee lounge, angled where I could see but not be easily spotted. The recording device in my purse wouldn't pick up their conversation from this distance, but I could observe body language. The meeting lasted nearly 2 hours, with increasing tension evident in my father's posture. When they finally emerged, I quickly moved to the restroom to avoid detection. Once they had passed, I entered the now empty business center and approached the receptionist. "Excuse me." I smiled my most charming smile. "My father just had a meeting here, Richard Mitchell. He thinks he left his pen behind." "Let me check the hummingbird room," she offered helpfully. While she was gone, I quickly photographed the sign-in sheet on her desk. The names were clear: Martin Weston, CFO of First Capital Bank, James Dougherty and Lawrence Chang, both from regulatory compliance at the same institution. The receptionist returned empty-handed, but I'd gotten what I needed. He must have put it in his pocket after all. Thanks anyway. That evening, I met Ryan at our now established spot by the staff dock. First Capital Bank sent their CFO and compliance officers to meet my father. I told him, showing him the photos. "That's not a routine business meeting." Ryan's expression grew serious. "Definitely not. Compliance officers usually only get involved when there are regulatory concerns or potential covenant violations on major loans. Mitchell Industries has several large loans with First Capital." I confirmed. "I remember signing as a board member on at least 2 of them." "Can you get access to any loan documentation?" Ryan asked. "That would tell us what covenants might be in play." I thought about my father's briefcase. "Possibly. But I need to be careful. They're already suspicious." Back in my room, I reviewed what I'd gathered so far. The picture was becoming clearer, but I still needed concrete proof of what Jessica and Bradley had done, and how my parents were planning to use me to fix it. My opportunity came unexpectedly the next morning. My father received an urgent call during breakfast and hurried away to take it privately. In his haste, he left his tablet behind. I casually picked it up along with my own belongings and retreated to a quiet corner of the resort's garden. His password had always been predictable: my mother's birthday, followed by an exclamation point. I was in within seconds, navigating directly to his email. The evidence was all there in black and white. Emails between my father and the bank discussing concerning patterns in recent financial reports. Internal communications showing Jessica and Bradley had diverted nearly $12 million from successful divisions to cover losses in their pet luxury development projects. Board meeting minutes indicating knowledge of financial irregularities dating back 18 months. Most damning of all was an email thread between my father and mother discussing how to approach me about investing significant personal capital into the company without revealing the true dire state of affairs. Samantha's portfolio could stabilize the situation until the Westlake project turns around, my father had written. We just need to present it as an opportunity rather than a bailout. My mother's response: "She's always wanted your approval. Offer her a vice presidency and hint at future leadership. She'll do it." I felt physically sick reading their cold calculation of my emotional vulnerabilities. They weren't just planning to use my money, they were going to manipulate my lifelong desire for parental validation to get it. As I continued searching, another email caught my eye. This one from Jessica to my father, dated just 2 weeks before our vacation. Spoke with Aunt Vivian. She's concerned about giving Samantha too much control given her history of impulsive decisions. Suggests we offer her non-voting shares instead of operational authority. Attached was a document titled SM, Investment, Proposal, Draft, PDF. I quickly downloaded it to my phone before closing everything and returning the tablet to where my father had left it, back in my room. I opened the document and found a fully prepared proposal designed to entice me to invest over $5 million of my personal assets into Mitchell Industries in exchange for non-voting shares and a symbolic leadership position. The document included talking points to address potential objections I might raise, including a section labeled, "If SM asks about financial disclosures with the strategy, emphasize family trust and future growth rather than current metrics." They were planning to defraud me, their own daughter and sister, by withholding the company's true financial condition while taking my money. I immediately called Ryan. "I need your financial expertise," I said without preamble when he answered. "How bad does a company's situation have to be for a bank to send compliance officers to a personal meeting? Worst case? They're considering calling their loans due immediately or investigating for fraud," Ryan replied. "What did you find?" "Everything," I said grimly. "Can you meet me tonight? I need to understand exactly how bad this is before I decide what to do." When we met, I shared everything I'd discovered, watching as Ryan's expression grew increasingly alarmed. "Based on these numbers," he said finally, after reviewing the files on my phone, "Mitchell Industries is technically insolvent. The only thing keeping it afloat is creative accounting and the bank's reluctance to force a default that would result in major losses for everyone. And Jessica and Bradley." Ryan's expression hardened. "This goes beyond poor business decisions. They've been systematically misleading investors and the board. That's securities fraud. They could face criminal charges. And my parents. It's unclear how much they knew and when. But this email suggests they're now fully aware and choosing to solve it by deceiving you rather than addressing the underlying issues." I nodded, processing this devastating confirmation of my worst fears. "You need to protect yourself," Ryan advised gently. "Once this house of cards collapses, and it will collapse, anyone with financial ties to the company could face consequences. I'm already a board member," I pointed out. "Am already legally entangled." "Then you need leverage," Ryan said. "Evidence that you were kept in the dark about the true financial situation and that you took action once you discovered it." I looked at the recordings and documents I'd gathered. "Like this. Exactly like that. But you also need a plan for what happens next. If you expose this, Mitchell Industries might not survive." The weight of this realization settled heavily on my shoulders. The company my grandfather had founded, that employed hundreds of people, that had been the cornerstone of my family's identity for generations, it might all come crashing down because of my sister's greed and my parents' weakness. "I need to think," I said finally. Ryan nodded. "Take your time, but not too much time. Based on these bank communications, you've probably got days, not weeks, before external forces make the decision for you." As I walked back to my suite, I felt the enormity of the situation pressing down on me. This was no longer about inheritance or family dynamics. People's livelihoods and legal consequences were now at stake, including my own. Whatever I decided to do next would irrevocably change the course of the Mitchell family forever. The next morning, a knock on my door surprised me. Opening it, I found Jessica standing there, looking uncharacteristically hesitant, a peace offering of coffee in hand. "Morning, sis," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Thought we could catch up before everyone else is awake." I took the coffee cautiously. "What's the occasion? Can't a girl want to spend time with her sister?" Jessica entered my room uninvited, glancing around subtly as if checking for something. "I feel like we've barely talked this trip. We've had different priorities," I replied neutrally, activating the recording app on my phone in my pocket. Jessica settled onto my balcony chaise lounge, gazing out at the ocean. Remember when we were kids and would build sandcastles together? Before competition and business complicated everything. I remembered something quite different, Jessica, destroying my sandcastles and blaming the tide, but I played along. Simpler times. I've been thinking, she continued, stirring her coffee absently. We've drifted apart these last few years. That's on me as much as you. Interesting timing for this realization, I commented. Jessica's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. What do you mean? Just that reconciliation seems to coincide with Dad revising the family trust. She laughed, a practiced sound. Always the suspicious one. This isn't about business, Sam. It's about us. In fact, I've booked us a sister's spa day. Massages, facials, the works. Just the two of us. I studied her face, noting the calculated warmth in her expression. Every instinct screamed trap, but knowledge was power. That sounds nice. When? This afternoon. 2 o'clock. She stood, apparently satisfied with my acquiescence. It'll be just like old times. Can't wait. I lied. As predicted, the spa day was a masterclass in manipulation. Between treatments, Jessica probed about my investment strategies, recent acquisitions, and available liquid capital. I fed her carefully constructed half-truths, watching her mentally calculate how much she might extract from me. I've been meaning to ask, she said casually as we reclined in the relaxation lounge, cucumber slices over our eyes. That tech fund you mentioned last Christmas, how's that performing? Exceeded projections. I answered truthfully. Nearly 30% return in the first quarter. That's impressive. She admitted, unable to hide the covetous tone in her voice. Have you considered diversifying into more traditional markets? Real estate, perhaps. Like Mitchell Development's Westlake project, I asked innocently. Jessica's body tensed slightly. You've heard about that? Dad mentioned it. Sounds ambitious. It's going to revolutionize luxury living in the area. Jessica responded, slipping into her polished sales pitch. The perfect blend of exclusivity and sustainability. Interesting. Has construction started? Breaking ground next quarter. She lied smoothly. I knew from the documents that construction had stalled months ago due to financing issues. I'd love to see the prospectus sometime, I suggested. Jessica practically vibrated with excitement. Actually, Dad's been talking about bringing you in on some company projects. Your financial background could be valuable. Really? That's surprising. Has never shown much interest in my investment approach before. People change, Sam. Maybe it's time you came back to the family business properly. After the spa, Jessica immediately sought out our parents. From my strategic position on the resort's mezzanine, I watched her animated conversation with them, no doubt reporting on my apparent interest and financial capabilities. That evening, my father invited me to join him for a drink on his suite's balcony. I wore a casual sundress with convenient pockets for my recording device. You seem to be enjoying yourself more today, he observed, pouring me a glass of his favorite scotch. Jessica and I had a nice time at the spa, I acknowledged. Good, good. Family should stick together. He settled into his chair, getting to the real purpose. I've been meaning to discuss something with you, Samantha. A business matter. During vacation. I raised an eyebrow. That's unlike you. Sometimes opportunities don't wait for convenient timing. He leaned forward. Mitchell Industries is positioned for significant expansion. The board is considering several major initiatives that could transform the company. I listened as he outlined a sanitized version of the company's situation, emphasizing potential growth while conveniently omitting the mountain of debt and failing projects. We'd like to offer you a more substantial role, he concluded. Executive Vice President of Strategic Investments. You'd work directly with me and the board. That's unexpected, I replied carefully. What prompted this change of heart? You've always preferred I stay in my own lane. I've been watching your investment success, he said, not quite meeting my eyes. The company could benefit from your expertise. And what would this role require from me? Besides my expertise, he cleared his throat. There would be a capital investment component. All senior executives have significant skin in the game. How significant? I pressed. 5 million, initially. He named the exact figure I'd seen in the draft proposal, with opportunity for additional investment as projects develop. I see. I took a sip of scotch. And would this investment come with proportional voting rights on the board? My father shifted uncomfortably. We're thinking more along the lines of preferred shares. Better dividend structure, but non-voting. The family maintains consistent voting control that way. So it'd be investing millions but have no say in how it's used. You'd have my word that your input would be valued, he assured me, the promise empty as air. I'd need to see the company financials before considering this, I said, watching his reaction carefully. Of course. Of course. He agreed too quickly. Though they're rather complex, Jessica and Bradley have prepared a summary that highlights the relevant points. I prefer to review the complete documentation, I insisted. Given the size of the investment, let's not get bogged down in details during vacation. He deflected. The summary will give you the big picture. We can deal with the minutiae once we're back home. The conversation continued in this vein, with my father attempting to secure my commitment while avoiding any specific disclosures about the company's true state. I played the role of interested but cautious investor, neither committing nor rejecting the proposal outright. After leaving his suite, I texted Ryan. They made their move, exactly as we predicted. His response came quickly, and I'm stringing them along. Need time to finalize my counter-strategy. Later that night, I heard a tap at my door. Catherine, the resort manager I'd met briefly on arrival, stood there looking uncomfortable. Miss Mitchell, could I speak with you privately? I invited her in, curious about this unexpected visit. This is highly irregular, she began, wringing her hands. But Mr. Ryan from our staff mentioned you might be dealing with a delicate family situation. He did he? I remained neutral, unsure of her intentions. Resort policy prohibits staff involvement in guest affairs, she continued. However, I felt I should inform you that our security system captured some concerning footage. She handed me a thumb drive. Your sister and brother-in-law were recorded entering your room yesterday while you were at the beach. They spent approximately 11 minutes inside before departing. My blood ran cold. You have security cameras in the hallways. For guest protection, yes. The footage is automatically archived for 30 days. And you're giving this to me because... Catherine straightened her shoulders. Because 15 years ago, I was the victim of financial fraud by family members I trusted. No one believed me until it was too late. I wouldn't wish that experience on anyone. After she left, I immediately checked my room for signs of disturbance. My laptop appeared untouched, but a quick check confirmed someone had accessed it. The webcam light indicator tape I'd discreetly placed had been broken and reattached, slightly askew. Thankfully, I kept nothing incriminating on the laptop itself, using it only for innocuous vacation photos and emails. All my evidence was stored on encrypted cloud services and my phone, which never left my possession. I reviewed the security footage Catherine had provided. Sure enough, Jessica and Bradley had entered my room using what appeared to be a staff keycard. They went straight to my laptop, spent several minutes examining it, then methodically searched my luggage and room safe before leaving. This violation cemented my resolve. The time for gathering evidence was over. Tomorrow, I would begin executing my counteroffensive. The 5th day of our vacation dawned bright and clear, a perfect day for the private beach excursion my mother had planned. As we boarded the resort's shuttle to the exclusive cove, I felt the weight of my recording devices in my beach bag and the heavier weight of decisions to come. Sam, you're sitting with me? Jessica patted the seat beside her with false sisterly affection. Since our spa day, Shed maintained the charade of reconciliation, no doubt reporting to our parents about my apparent receptiveness to their scheme. Beautiful day, I commented as we drove along the coastal road. Perfect for family time. My father nodded approvingly from the front seat. That's the spirit, Samantha. At the beach, staff had prepared a luxurious set-up cabanas, a catered lunch, water sports equipment, My family settled into their usual roles. My father discussing business on his phone despite the vacation-only rule. My mother and Aunt Vivian comparing notes on resort gossip. Jessica sunbathing while Bradley attempted to look important on his tablet. I positioned myself strategically, appearing to read while actually recording their conversations when they thought I wasn't paying attention. Throughout the morning, I caught snippets that confirmed my findings, whispered discussions about the proposal, Sam's investment, and bank deadlines. Midday, Bradley approached me as I returned from a swim. Something in his expression put me on alert. "Enjoying yourself, Samantha." His tone was pleasant, but his eyes were calculating. "Immensely," I replied, wringing water from my hair. "Nothing like family time. Jessica mentioned you two had a good talk yesterday." He positioned himself between me and the others. "She was pleased you might be interested in a larger role at Mitchell Industries. It's an interesting proposition," I said noncommittally. Bradley's eyes narrowed slightly. "Your father mentioned you wanted to see detailed financials. Due diligence is standard practice for investments of that size." "Of course," he agreed too readily. "Though sometimes numbers don't tell the whole story. The vision and leadership behind them matter more. In my experience, numbers tell exactly the story leadership doesn't want to admit." I countered. Bradley's facade slipped momentarily, revealing a flash of annoyance before his practiced smile returned. "You've always been the skeptical one, haven't you? Never quite trusting the family's judgment." "Trust is earned, Bradley. Not automatically granted because of family ties." "Well, I hope you'll trust us on this opportunity. It could be transformative for everyone involved." The implicit threat in his tone was unmistakable. "I'm still considering my options," I replied evenly. "Don't consider too long," he advised, his voice hardening. "Some opportunities have expiration dates." As he walked away, Jessica approached, clearly having observed our interaction. "Everything okay?" she asked, concern masking the calculation in her eyes. "Fine," I assured her. "Bradley was just checking if I'd made any decisions about Dad's offer." "And have you?" she pressed, attempting casual interest. "Still evaluating. $5 million is a significant investment." Jessica slipped her arm through mine, leading me toward the water's edge. "It's not just about the money, Sam. It's about family legacy, your place in it." "My place has always been on the periphery," I reminded her. "By design, not choice." "That can change," she insisted. "We want you involved now, part of the inner circle." "Why the sudden change of heart?" Jessica hesitated, crafting her response. "The company's entering a new phase. We need your financial expertise." "Just my expertise? Or my capital too?" "Both," she admitted. "But isn't that what you've always wanted? To be valued for your skills? To have Dad recognize your contributions?" Her manipulation was masterful, targeting my deepest insecurities. If I hadn't discovered their true intentions, her words might have swayed me. "I'll need to review the complete financial picture before making any decisions," I maintained. "Of course," she soothed, though I caught the flash of frustration in her eyes. The afternoon progressed with increasing tension beneath the veneer of family harmony. I noticed Bradley growing increasingly agitated after several phone calls. He and Jessica had a heated whispered exchange behind their cabana, unaware I'd positioned a recording device nearby. "First Capital is pushing up the timeline," Bradley hissed. "They're sending the full audit team next week instead of next month." "That's impossible." Jessica sounded panicked. "We need more time. Tell that to their fraud investigation unit." "Someone tipped them off. Could it be Sam? Has she been digging?" I checked her laptop. Nothing there. But she's been asking too many specific questions. Dad needs to close her investment before the audit. Once her money's in the company accounts, we can use it to cover the discrepancies temporarily. And if she refuses, Jessica's voice turned cold, then we move to Plan B. The documents are ready if we need them. "That's extreme, Jess. She's still your sister. And this is still my company. I'm not losing everything because Sam suddenly develops a conscience about family loyalty." Their conversation confirmed my worst fears. Not only were they planning to use my money to temporarily mask their fraud from auditors, but they had a plan B that sounded ominous. I needed to find out what those documents contained. As the sun began to set, my father suggested we return to the resort for dinner. During the shuttle ride back, I texted Ryan, "Urgent. Need to meet. Investigation accelerating." At the resort, I excused myself to shower before dinner, but instead went directly to Ryan's meeting spot. He was already waiting, looking concerned. "First Capital Bank is sending auditors next week," I told him without preamble. "My family's desperate to get my money before then." "That changes the timeline," he acknowledged. "They must be more exposed than we thought." "There's more. Jessica mentioned documents for Plan B if I don't cooperate." "Any idea what those might be?" Ryan thought for a moment. "Worst case? Fabricated evidence showing you were aware of or involved in the financial irregularities, making you a scapegoat." The pieces clicked into place. "That's why they searched my room. They were planting something or checking if I had evidence against them." "What's your plan?" I took a deep breath. "I've scheduled a family dinner tomorrow night. Private room at the resort's restaurant. I'm going to confront them with everything I know." "Are you sure that's wise?" Ryan looked alarmed. "These people have shown they're willing to commit fraud and potentially frame you." "I have all the evidence secured," I assured him. "Multiple backups, including copies with my lawyer at home. And I need Catherine to be ready with the security footage showing them entering my room." Ryan nodded. "I'll speak with her." "What else do you need?" "Technical support to play the recordings during dinner." "Can you help?" "I'll set everything up discreetly," he promised. "But Samantha, be careful. When cornered, people can become dangerous." "I know," I said grimly. "But it's time to end this. One way or another." As I walked back to prepare for the coming confrontation, I felt strangely calm. After days of deception and discovery, the truth would finally come out. Whether my family could survive it was another question entirely. The resort's exclusive diamond room glittered with chandelier light as servers arranged the final place settings for our family dinner. I'd requested this space specifically for its privacy and the discreet side entrance where Ryan had helped me set up audio equipment earlier. A small speaker system was concealed behind a decorative panel, ready to broadcast the evidence I'd gathered. I arrived first, checking that everything was in place, my phone loaded with the recordings arranged in the specific order I planned to reveal them. My stomach churned with anxiety, but my resolve remained firm. My family arrived together, looking relaxed and unsuspecting. My father, in his favorite vacation blazer, held my mother's arm as she glided in wearing an elegant blue dress. Jessica sparkled in designer wear, Bradley matching her in his tailored suit. Aunt Vivian completed the group, her shrewd eyes taking in the private room with approval. "This is a lovely surprise, Samantha," my mother commented as they took their seats. "What's the occasion?" "I thought we deserved a special family dinner," I replied smoothly, "to celebrate a new beginnings." My father's eyebrows rose with interest. "New beginnings. I've been doing a lot of thinking about your proposal," I said, noting how everyone suddenly paid closer attention. "About my role in the family and the business." Jessica and Bradley exchanged subtle glances of triumph. "I'm pleased to hear that," my father said, reaching for his wine glass. "Shall we toast?" "Not just yet," I demurred. "I think we have some matters to discuss first." The first course arrived, a delicate seafood appetizer that no one would end up eating. As the servers departed and closed the doors, I took a steadying breath. "I know about Westlake," I stated plainly. The effect was immediate. Bradley's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Jessica's smile froze. My father's face remained carefully neutral, but his knuckles whitened around his glass. "What about it?" he asked cautiously. "I know it's failing. I know it's just one of several projects Jessica and Bradley have mismanaged to the tune of millions. I know Mitchell Industries is technically insolvent and the bank is sending auditors next week instead of next month." Shocked silence descended on the table. "Samantha," my mother began, her voice artificially soothing. "I think you've misunderstood some. Let me finish," I interrupted. I know you plan to use my $5 million investment to temporarily cover financial discrepancies before the audit. I know you never intended to give me actual authority in the company despite the title you dangled. And I know about Plan B if I refused. Bradley recovered first, attempting damage control. You're making serious accusations based on partial information. The company faces normal business challenges, nothing more. Normal business challenges don't require fraud to conceal them, I countered. That's enough, my father snapped. This is inappropriate dinner conversation. Is it? Then perhaps we should listen to some recordings instead. I pressed play on my phone. Jessica's voice filled the room. Dad's meeting with the lawyers next month to finalize the trust revisions. We need to make sure Sam doesn't get control of any of the major holdings. Bradley's response followed. Has he actually considered giving her equal share? As their entire conversation from the first night played, Jessica's face drained of color. Bradley glared at me with undisguised hatred. When it finished, I played the next my parents discussing cutting me out of operational inheritance. Then Aunt Vivian reporting to Jessica after our breakfast. Finally, the damning conversation about using my money to hide their financial misconduct before the audit. With each recording, my family's expressions shifted from shock to anger to fear. No one spoke, no one moved. The weight of exposed truth hung heavy in the air. How dare you record private conversations? Jessica finally hissed. That's illegal. Actually, in this state, recording conversations you're party to is perfectly legal. I corrected her. And for the ones I wasn't present for, well, let's just say the resort has interesting policies about security when fraud is suspected. I turned to my father, whose face had aged years in minutes. You were going to use me. You were going to exploit my desire for your approval, a desire I've had my entire life to save Jessica from the consequences of her actions. It wasn't like that, he protested weakly. It was exactly like that. I slid a folder across the table. These are the real Mitchell Industries financials, not the sanitized version you planned to show me. The company has been functionally insolvent for months, propped up by accounting fraud orchestrated by your golden child and her husband. Bradley lunged across the table. Where did you get those? Those are confidential. From your briefcase, Dad, I answered calmly. The same place you keep the loan documents showing the company has violated multiple covenants. The same place you store the board minutes that could be used to prove securities fraud. My mother began to cry, mascara streaming down her cheeks. Samantha, you don't understand. We were trying to protect the family legacy. By sacrificing me, I asked quietly. I was family too. Or did you forget that over the years of favoring Jessica? Aunt Vivian, silent until now, attempted reconciliation. Samantha, darling, we can fix this. As a family, I turned to her, letting my hurt show at last. You were the one person I thought I could trust. You built that trust for years, making me believe you valued me when no one else did. And you sold it all for a beach house. Shame colored her features as she looked away. Jessica, ever strategic, shifted to her final defense. What exactly do you want, Sam? Money? Control? Revenge? Whatever it is, destroying the family won't get it for you. I want what I've always wanted, I replied honestly. Fairness, truth, recognition of my worth not just as an investor you can exploit, but as a family member deserving of basic respect. And you think this theatrical ambush accomplishes that? Bradley scoffed. No, I acknowledged. This just forces everything into the open where it can't be denied or manipulated anymore. I placed another folder on the table. This contains my proposal for restructuring Mitchell Industries. It addresses the financial irregularities, creates a path to solvency that doesn't involve fraud, and protects as many jobs as possible. My father reached for it hesitantly. Before you open it, I cautioned. You should know that copies of all evidence I've gathered have been secured with my attorney, along with instructions to deliver everything to First Capital Bank and the SEC. If anything happens to me, or if you attempt to implement Plan B, whatever that entails, you'd really destroy your own family. Jessica asked incredulously. You were planning to destroy me, I reminded her. Frame me for your misdeeds if I didn't cooperate. I'm simply protecting myself. My father opened the folder, scanning my proposal with growing disbelief. This could actually work. But it would mean Jessica and Bradley relinquishing control of their division. Yes, I confirmed. Full financial transparency going forward, and equal ownership shares between all legitimate family members. Ridiculous, Bradley sputtered. We built that division into the ground. I finished for him. With 12 million in losses concealed through accounting fraud, my father looked up from the papers, his expression unreadable. You're suggesting you take over as CFO. I'm suggesting the company hire a qualified, independent CFO with no family ties. I corrected. I would serve on the board with equal voting rights to Jessica, but neither of us would have operational control without proper oversight. The silence stretched as my family processed the implications. And if we refuse, my mother finally asked, then I'll walk away completely, I said simply. And everything I've discovered goes to the authorities and the bank. Mitchell Industries will likely collapse, and those responsible for the fraud may face criminal charges. Jessica slammed her hand on the table. This is blackmail. This is accountability. I corrected. Something our family has been sorely lacking. My father closed the folder slowly. We need time to consider this. You have until morning, I stated, rising from my chair. The bank's audit team arrives Monday. They'll need answers before then. As I turned to leave, Jessica called after me. You've ruined everything, Sam. This vacation, this family, everything. I paused at the door, looking back at the people who had conspired against me, who had undervalued and planned to exploit me my entire life. No, Jessica. You did that yourselves. I'm just refusing to be your victim anymore. With that, I walked out, leaving them with the shattered remains of their schemes and the uncomfortable weight of truth. 3 months after that fateful family dinner at the resort, I stood in the newly renovated conference room of Mitchell Industries headquarters. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the fresh start we were attempting to forge from the ashes of deception. The aftermath of my confrontation had been as difficult as expected. That night, after leaving my family in stunned silence, I'd returned to my room and collapsed in emotional exhaustion. Ryan had checked on me, bringing tea and quiet companionship as I processed the magnitude of what I'd done, no matter what happens next. Had assured me, you stood up for yourself with integrity. That counts for something. My father had appeared at my door early the next morning, looking haggard and defeated. Well, accept your terms, Head said simply, his voice roughened by a sleepless night. All of them. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of legal meetings, financial disclosures, and painful reckonings. First Capital Bank had been surprisingly cooperative once we voluntarily disclosed the issues and presented our restructuring plan. They'd recognized that forcing Mitchell Industries into bankruptcy would result in greater losses for all involved. Jessica and Bradley had not accepted their diminished roles gracefully. My sister had alternated between tearful pleas for forgiveness and venomous accusations of betrayal. Bradley had threatened legal action until our family lawyer had quietly reminded him that his own exposure to fraud charges made such a course unwise. Aunt Vivian had tried repeatedly to reconcile, sending heartfelt letters explaining her actions and begging for understanding, if not forgiveness. I'd let them pile up, unopened, until I was ready to face her complicated role in my life. The most surprising development had been my parents' gradual awakening to the dysfunctional patterns that had defined our family for decades. My mother had suggested family therapy, an idea so out of character that I'd initially suspected an ulterior motive. But 3 sessions in, I'd witnessed her tearfully acknowledge her favoritism and its devastating impact. I don't expect you to forgive me quickly, or maybe ever, Shed said. But I want you to know I see it now. How we failed you. My father, ever more comfortable with action than words, had shown his remorse by meticulously implementing every aspect of my restructuring plan, even the parts that diminished his own authority. Head supported the hiring of Marion Coleman, a seasoned CFO with impeccable credentials and no patience for financial impropriety. Now, standing in the conference room awaiting the first board meeting under our new structure, I felt cautiously optimistic about Mitchell Industries' future. The company was still navigating rough waters, but with transparent accounting and sound business practices, we had a fighting chance. "The numbers look promising for Q4, said a familiar voice behind me. Ryan smiled as he entered, setting down a stack of financial projections. After the resort, Head accepted my offer to join Mitchell Industries as a financial analyst. His outsider perspective and ethical stance had proven invaluable during the transition. Marion thinks we'll be cash positive by year-end if the Riverside project stays on schedule, he added. That would be a significant milestone, I acknowledged. Though I'm trying to manage expectations, always the pragmatist, he teased gently. In the months since the vacation, our professional relationship had gradually evolved into something more personal. We'd been taking it slowly, both aware of the complicated circumstances that had brought us together. The conference room began filling with board members and executives. Jessica arrived last, her entrance lacking its usual dramatic flair. Our relationship remained strained, but professionally functional. She'd thrown herself into salvaging what remained of her division, working harder than I'd ever seen her work before. "Shall we begin?" My father called the meeting to order, nodding respectfully in my direction, a small gesture that would have been unthinkable 4 months ago. As the meeting progressed, I observed the changing dynamics with a mixture of satisfaction and lingering sadness. Mitchell Industries was healing, becoming stronger and more ethical, but our family relationships remained fragile, works in progress. After the meeting, I found myself alone with my father in his office, now decorated with photos of both his daughter's achievements, not just Jessica's. "The bank called," he said, organizing papers on his desk. "They're pleased with our progress. The special oversight conditions might be lifted ahead of schedule." "That's good news," I acknowledged. He looked up, his expression uncharacteristically vulnerable. "You saved this company, Samantha. You could have walked away, let us crash and burn. No one would have blamed you." "Maybe I should have," I admitted. "But despite everything, I still care about Grandpa's legacy. The employees who depend on Mitchell Industries. And yes, even this dysfunctional family of ours. We don't deserve your loyalty," he said quietly. "No, you don't," I agreed. "But I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for me, for the person I want to be." That evening, I met Ryan for dinner at a small restaurant far from the corporate district. Over pasta and wine, we discussed the day's developments and cautiously made plans for a weekend getaway. "I've been thinking about starting a new tradition," I told him. "A personal vacation. No family drama, no hidden agendas, just genuine relaxation." "Sounds perfect," he smiled. "Where were you thinking?" "Somewhere I've never been before. Somewhere I can create new memories instead of reliving old wounds." As we discussed possibilities, I reflected on the painful journey that had brought me here. The betrayal had been devastating, but the truth had ultimately been liberating. For the first time in my life, I was seen clearly by my family, not as the less favored child to be manipulated, but as a competent woman whose boundaries demanded respect. The healing process would be long. Some relationships, like the one with my sister, might never fully recover. Others, like those with my parents, were evolving into something more authentic, if sometimes uncomfortably honest. And new connections, like my relationship with Ryan, offered hope that I could build a chosen family based on mutual respect and genuine caring. The Mitchell family vacation tradition was permanently altered, but perhaps that was for the best. Truth, however painful, had cleared the way for something healthier to grow in its place, and I had finally found the strength to value myself even when others didn't. Perhaps the most important lesson of all. What about you? Have you ever had to stand up against family manipulation or betrayal? What helped you find the strength to protect yourself while still working toward healing? Share your stories in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that notification bell to join our community of people supporting each other through life's toughest challenges. Thank you for listening to my story today. And remember that your worth isn't determined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to treat yourself.